Dave arrives at the office before almost everyone else. The lights are still dim. By 8 o'clock, he is already answering emails, fixing leftover issues from the previous day, and preparing a meeting that no one else wanted to schedule. Leon arrives about 40 minutes later. Relaxed, calm, unhurried. At first glance, he looks lazy. But if you look closely, something feels calculated about him. He doesn't waste energy randomly. He doesn't rush into every problem. He studies situations first, almost like a chess player observing the board before making a move. He knows exactly when to speak, when to stay silent, when to be visible, and when to step away from unnecessary responsibility. And somehow, months later, both men are treated almost the same. Same meetings, similar performance reviews, similar salaries. Sometimes Leon even seems less exhausted, more socially liked, and strangely more stable inside the company. Meanwhile, Dave feels like he is carrying the entire system on his back. Hi, I'm Kaya, and in today's video, I'm going to show you why some people quietly survive corporate life for years, while the hardest workers slowly burn themselves out without understanding why. Because modern workplaces often reward something very different from what hardworking people expect. Most employees believe work follows a simple formula. More work leads to more value, leads to more reward. But corporate systems rarely function this cleanly. In reality, modern offices are psychological systems. That's why many hardworking employees quietly burn out, while less productive people remain stable for years. Not because the lazy employee is smarter, but because he understands the system differently. Dave still believes effort automatically creates recognition. Leon understands something else. Perception shapes reality inside organizations. And once you see that clearly, the workplace starts to look completely different. Both men started at the company around the same time. Same age, same department, similar education. But they approach work in completely different ways. Dave takes responsibility immediately. If a project starts collapsing, he steps in. If deadlines become critical, he stays late. If colleagues struggle, he helps. At first, managers love this. He seems reliable, dependable, committed, and he is. But slowly, something invisible happens. More and more work gets shifted toward him. More responsibility, more pressure, more emotional weight. And the dangerous part is, it happens so gradually that he barely notices it at first, because organizations naturally shift problems toward the people most capable of carrying them. That is one of the hidden laws of office work. The stronger you appear, the more pressure the system quietly places on you. Leon works differently. He rarely volunteers for extra tasks. He rarely overcommits. He rarely creates expectations he cannot sustain. At first glance, this looks lazy, but psychologically it protects him, because he never trains the system to expect constant sacrifice. This creates a strange imbalance. Dave becomes operationally essential. Leon becomes operationally sustainable. And those are not the same thing. In Tokyo, there is a scene you can observe almost every evening. Inside, exhausted salarymen quietly work at their desks, while trains outside become emptier and emptier. Many stay not because they are productive, but because leaving early feels socially uncomfortable. The culture rewards visible endurance, and modern offices around the world often work the same way. Presence is confused with value. Stress is confused with importance. Exhaustion is confused with ambition. Dave slowly falls into this trap. He believes constant effort proves commitment. So he replies to messages immediately, fixes every mistake, handles unstable projects quietly. And because he solves problems before they escalate, management rarely sees how much pressure he is actually under. That is the paradox of high performers. The better they become at preventing chaos, the less visible their work becomes. And invisible effort is dangerous inside modern systems, because people rarely reward what they never fully see. Leon understands something different. Systems reward outcomes people can see, not invisible sacrifices nobody notices. So he carefully manages perception. He speaks confidently in meetings, keeps communication simple, avoids emotional overload, and most importantly, he protects his energy. This is where many hardworking employees become frustrated, because they believe work is measured objectively. But workplaces are emotional systems. Managers are human beings, and humans naturally prefer people who are emotionally easy to manage. Calm employees, social employees, people who create less tension. This does not mean competence is irrelevant. It means competence alone is not enough. Dave creates enormous operational value, but he also creates invisible dependency. Everyone starts relying on him, and dependency is dangerous inside organizations, because once a system depends on you, changing your role becomes inconvenient. Ironically, the harder he works, the more trapped he becomes. Meanwhile, Leon stays flexible. He contributes enough to remain safe, visible enough to remain respected, relaxed enough to remain emotionally stable, and because he never becomes the emotional center of every crisis, he avoids burnout. One afternoon, Dave notices something strange. A project he spent weeks stabilizing is only briefly mentioned in a meeting. No recognition, no major acknowledgement. The discussion moves on within minutes. In the same meeting, Leon presents a simple update and receives positive attention from senior leadership. Dave feels something shift inside him. Not anger, something deeper, disillusionment. Because he begins to realize the system may not reward effort the way he thought it would. And once that thought appears, it cannot be unseen. In Japan, there is another cultural principle often associated with discipline: gammon, to endure patiently, to tolerate discomfort silently, to continue without complaint. This mindset builds strong resilience. But in modern corporate systems, it can also become dangerous, because organizations normalize whatever behavior is consistently tolerated. If you constantly over-delivery becomes the baseline. If you constantly sacrifice boundaries, the system begins to expect permanent sacrifice. Dave unknowingly teaches the company that extreme effort is normal. Leon teaches something else, that his availability has limits, and boundaries reshape expectations. This is one of the most important truths in modern work life. People are often not rewarded for maximum effort, but for sustainable expectations, and that changes everything. Most hardworking employees believe, if I keep proving myself, things will eventually balance out. But many systems never correct imbalance on their own, especially when reliable employees keep silently compensating. This creates what psychologists call invisible labor, work that keeps systems running smoothly, but is rarely recognized because its success is measured by the absence of problems. Nobody notices the crisis you prevented. And sometimes, the better you become at saving the system, the less the system feels urgency to protect you. On a winter evening, Dave leaves the office long after dark. The streets are almost empty. Rain reflects city lights on the asphalt. As he passes a small Japanese restaurant, he sees an older businessman sitting alone inside. Simple suit, simple meal, no rush, complete calm. And for a moment, Dave realizes something important. This man does not look impressive, but he looks balanced. That feeling stays with him, because balance is something he no longer has. Dave begins questioning everything he once believed about work, because competence alone is clearly not enough. The people who survive longest in complex organizations are rarely the ones who sacrifice themselves the most. They are usually the ones who understand how pressure moves through systems and know exactly when to carry it and when to let it pass. And in social systems, perception shapes reality far more than most people realize.